Before tonight's investigation begins, this program is supported by scarier, a real online store of useful everyday gadgets and tools. Free worldwide shipping, new picks weekly. That's scarier.com. Now let's begin. Picture this, not as fact, as the shape a story takes after it's passed through 100 trembling mouths. A city, unnamed, sleeping, and a fog so total that people describe it as losing their own hands in front of their faces. That's the first detail every account agrees on, and it's strange enough on its own. This thing is never seen in a clear sky. Never in a drizzle, never in mist you could still see a street lamp through. Only in fog so dense it swallows the world whole.
And always at night. That's the second thread running through every version of this story I've collected. Not dusk, not dawn, the deep, full dark. Whatever this is, it seems to need both conditions at once. Total darkness, total fog. Which already tells you something, even before you get to the strange part.
Right, because the strange part is the size. Witnesses describe something between 3 and 11 stories tall, and here's what unsettles me most. As someone who likes tidy explanations, there's no middle ground. No 4-story sightings, no 7, just the short ones and the towering ones, like two separate species sharing one silhouette.
Some who've chased this story longer than me float the idea that we're not seeing a range. We're seeing an age structure, or a caste. The young and the old, the small and the large, and everything in between might exist too. We just never catch it in the fog. That's speculation, to be clear. Nothing here is confirmed, but it's the kind of theory that keeps people staring into fog banks at 3 a.m.
The shape itself is the part that stays with you, though. Long-legged, giraffe-like is the word that keeps coming up independently from witnesses who never spoke to each other. A small torso balanced impossibly high, and a gait that isn't lumbering, isn't frightening in the way you'd expect. Slow, almost graceful, like it isn't in any hurry to be anywhere.
And the head. This is the detail that got me interested in the first place. The head is never seen. Not obscured by shadow, not turned away. The fog itself seems to thicken exactly where a head should be, like it's wearing the fog, or like the fog is part of it. Nobody in these accounts claims to have seen a face, not once.
But here's the detail that turns fear into something closer to awe. In every account, and I want to stress, these are witness-style stories, never anything official, nothing verified. This thing does nothing. No hostility, no damage, no one goes missing. It walks through sleeping streets, past parked cars, past streetlights, and it doesn't react to any of it.
It doesn't notice the world at all. That's the line that got repeated to me almost word for word by different storytellers. It ignores everything. Not aggressively, just completely, as if the city isn't there, as if it's walking through a place it doesn't fully register.
And then, before sunrise, it's gone. Witnesses say the fog simply thins from around it until there's nothing left to see. No body, no struck-down trail through the mist, just absence. Whatever it was, wherever it goes, we're only beginning to ask that question tonight. Here's the strange part of this legend. It doesn't belong to any one place. You'd expect a story like this to have a hometown, a harbor where it all started. But the fog walkers don't work that way. Ask around port towns and river cities, and you'll find fragments. A logbook mention here, a barroom story there, none of them citing each other, none of them aware the others exist.
That's what struck me first when I started collecting these accounts. No shared origin point, no founding text, just scattered testimony that rhymes. A night watchman in one city describes a shape with legs like a construction crane. A river pilot 2,000 miles away, who's never heard of the watchman, describes almost the same silhouette. That kind of convergence without contact is what makes folklorists sit up.
And to be clear, we're not claiming any of this is verified. There's no official record here, no confirmed sighting log. What we have is oral tradition, informal report, the kind of story that moves through dock workers and night shift crews rather than through newspapers.
Right. and that transmission method matters. These are working people, often alone, often at the edges of a city where the fog rolls in off the water. It's the same social terrain that's produced maritime ghost stories for centuries. So one theory, and it's only a theory, is that we're looking at an old, mythic pattern wearing modern clothes.
The wandering giant. It shows up everywhere, doesn't it? Indifferent, immense, unbothered by the small creatures underfoot. Cultures separated by oceans have some version of a giant who doesn't attack, doesn't speak, just passes through.
Exactly. And what's notable about the fog walkers' accounts is how closely they track that indifference. No hostility, ever. No property damage. No one hurt. No one taken. They ignore lights, sound, moving vehicles. If this is myth doing what myth does, it's borrowing a very old emotional register. Awe without threat.
Which brings us to the part of the legend that people keep coming back to. The idea that this isn't just a recurring monster story, but a route, a migration. 4 appearances a year, each in a different city, tracing what witnesses describe as a loop across a continent.
That's the detail that turns this from ghost story into something closer to a map. And here's where I want to be careful, because it's tempting to treat migration as a confirmed pattern. It isn't. It's an inference stitched together from scattered, unverified reports, some of them decades apart, none of them cross-referenced by any official body.
So we hedge it as a theory. If there is a route, it might not be fixed. A true migration can shift with seasons, with conditions we don't understand, which means the next city on anyone's imagined list may not be the right one.
And that uncertainty is, honestly, part of why the legend refuses to die. A ghost story with a fixed haunted house eventually gets debunked or forgotten. A story that might be anywhere next season, that one keeps people watching the fog a little longer than they should.
Every legend has a detail that snags on you, the one thing that refuses to sit quietly in the story. For the fogwalkers, it isn't the height. It isn't even that mercifully absent head. It's the total, complete indifference. No aggression, no destruction, no missing persons. According to the accounts we have, these things could not care less that we exist.
That's what makes it so unsettling to people who study this kind of folklore. We're wired to expect monsters to want something from us, to hunt, to guard, to punish. The reports here describe something that walks past cars, past streetlights, past people, like none of it registers at all.
So let's ground this before we drift. What do we actually have on record, so to speak? The recurring witness claims.
Consistently, no attacks, no property damage, no one ever goes missing in connection with a sighting. Multiple accounts describe the figures ignoring lights and sound entirely, as if cars and voices simply don't exist for them. That indifference is arguably the single most repeated detail across every version of the story.
Which brings us to theory number 1, the grounded, boring, comforting one. Mass psychology. Shared expectation shaping perception.
Right. And it's worth taking seriously precisely because it's unglamorous. Dense fog, adrenaline, low visibility, the brain fills gaps. If a community already has a folklore template of giant migrating figures, witnesses might unconsciously slot ambiguous shapes into that template. Shared narrative could produce shared indifference details too, since the story itself insists they ignore us.
And sleep phenomena. I know that's floated in cryptid research generally.
Yes, hypnagogic or hypnopompic states, especially since these are always night sightings, could produce vivid, dreamlike perception of huge, slow-moving, unresponsive figures. It doesn't explain the whole pattern, but it's a real, documented human experience that overlaps oddly well with these descriptions.
Then there's folklore transmission, the idea that the story itself is what's actually migrating, not any entity.
That's the more skeptical historians read. Port and river cities have long swapped tales of giant wanderers appearing in mist. The 4 times a year different city pattern could simply reflect how a compelling story spreads along trade or travel routes and gets relocalized each time, with witnesses unconsciously borrowing the same beats, including that eerie non-recognition.
Now the speculative end, which we have to flag clearly as unproven. One theory floated is that the fog isn't concealment at all. It's a byproduct, almost an early warning sign that something is arriving.
Purely speculative, but it reframes the indifference intriguingly. If the fog is intrinsic to them rather than hiding them, then their ignoring us might not be aloofness. It might be that we're simply outside whatever registers as relevant in their world. Not malice, not even awareness, just utter irrelevance.
Which is almost more unsettling than a monster that wants to eat you.
Much more. A predator at least acknowledges you exist. This is something the story insists doesn't.
No hostility, no curiosity, no recognition at all, just fog and long legs passing through it, utterly untouched by anything we do. So let's do the thing we promised at the start of all this. Let's separate what's actually documented, meaning consistently reported across independent tellings of this legend, from what we're speculating about, which is everything else.
Right. And I think that's crucial, because it's easy to blur those lines after 3 episodes of getting pulled into the atmosphere of it. So, the record. What do we actually have?
We have an oral legend. That's the bedrock fact. It exists, it circulates, and it has specific, stable details that don't drift much in the retelling. The fog, the night-only appearances, the 4 times a year rhythm, the total absence of a visible head.
And the consistency itself is a fact worth sitting with. Legends usually mutate wildly. This one holds its shape. That's documented. Not the creature, but the stability of the story about the creature.
Then there's the psychological resonance, also documented, in the sense that we can observe how people react to it. The unease isn't about violence because there isn't any. It's about indifference. That reaction is real, even if the cause is not confirmed.
Now the other column, the undocumented. Any literal giant walking through fog, any actual scale of 3 stories or 11 stories, any real migratory route across a continent. None of that is verified. There's no official record, no photographs we can point to and say, there.
And the theories we floated, the fog as a byproduct rather than camouflage, the missing middle sizes suggesting some kind of age or caste structure, the idea that the route could shift. Bisakast, those remain theories, interesting shapes to think with, not conclusions.
I want to be honest about that, because it would be easy to let the compelling internal logic of this thing convince us it's more than folklore. It hangs together almost too well. But hangs together well isn't evidence. It's good storytelling.
Agreed. So what are we left with, honestly? A story people keep telling, in different places with the same strange details, about something enormous that never notices anyone.
And maybe that's the actual mystery worth taking from this. Not whether it's real, but why that specific detail, the not noticing, is the one that lodges in people. Out of everything they could have invented, they chose indifference.
Because a monster that hunts you at least acknowledges you exist. It sees you enough to want something from you. This thing walks through a town like the town isn't there.
There's something almost worse in that. Being hunted means you matter to the thing hunting you, even if only as prey. Being unseen by something that vast means you don't register at all. You're beneath its notice, like an ant is beneath ours.
And maybe that's the real reason this story spreads. Not because people believe a giant is out there in the fog, but because all of us, at some point, have felt like we could vanish and the world would keep moving, unbothered at the same slow, graceful pace.
So we'll leave the giant in the fog where he belongs. Unconfirmed, undocumented, a story and nothing more. But the feeling underneath it? That one's real enough to keep us looking over our shoulder on a foggy night.
That's it for this one. Thanks for walking through the fog with me. Until next time, keep asking questions and maybe keep the porch light on.
You've been listening to Harrison's Conspiracies. Until the next record, stay curious.
Investigations closed. Stepping out of it for a second, Just me recommending the shop that backs this show. Sky Horizon's an online store I actually like. Practical gadgets and tools for your place, your kitchen, your car, your pets. They add new ones weekly. Free worldwide shipping if you order. Go have a look. skyhorizon.com. Fiction disclaimer. Harrison's Conspiracies is a fictional entertainment podcast. Episodes may draw inspiration from real people, locations, scientific concepts, historical records, folklore, and documented events, but may include invented characters, dialogue, evidence, organizations, interpretations, and supernatural or speculative elements. The story may not accurately represent real-world history, physics, people, locations, investigations, or events. Listeners should not treat the episode as a factual documentary or authoritative source.